Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. It's the moniker and key to success they use at Louisville Slugger Hitting and Science Center, where the best of the best in baseball elites go to work on the science of hitting and improving every aspect of their game. At the center, they work with everyone from elite college athletes to the best Major League Baseball players, past and present, in order to make sure that they maximize every aspect of their game. For context, according to the MLB, the average hitting percentage around the league is .250. And according to Chad Miller, the founder of the Science Center, he tells me that patience and relationship building are just two of the major keys, along with consistency of practice. That's what's needed to elevate both your game, your slugging percentage, and your confidence, according to Miller, who says the best part of his job is working with players of every level to grow the passion for America's pastime. He says it's all about making progress, both on and off the field, to grow the game, to appeal to a wider audience, and get athletes of every level of baseball to believe if they work hard enough, anything, both personally and professionally, is possible. Miller took some time out of the batting cages this week to have a conversation with me about the science of baseball, the appropriate approach to working on your craft as a hitter, and how we grow the overall game of baseball. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. So, Chad, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn how you have baseball players improve their game, buddy. Great to see you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for a few minutes, buddy.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time and letting me come on today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that you're all about helping baseball players improve every aspect of their hitting game, and you use a science and the athletics of baseball to get the job done, my friend. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about all the great work that you do.
So basically what we try to do is we look at baseball players from a perspective of how do they actually use what's been given to them from a biomechanical perspective. How do we use their strengths, and how do we put them in the best possible position to succeed? And so what we'll do is we'll start off by doing a ground force pressure evaluation of the player, and then we'll take a look at how they actually use their feet, and what type of angle does their feet cause their legs to go into, and then activate their glutes, and then obviously understand how they are going to actually utilize their legs, and then as that translates all the way up to the body, how does that impact their balance and direction? And then ultimately, how does that help and impact their timing, tempo, and cadence of their ability to hit the ball in a consistent manner?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know the Louisville Slugger Hitting Science Center is the organization that you run, buddy, and it helps with the goal for players to learn more about themselves and train their strengths and reduce weaknesses as well. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about the goals of the center as well.
Yes, our goal is really to optimize every player's ability, and we look at what people do really well, and I think oftentimes, coaches and instructors and really parents sometimes only dwell on the negative of what kids do poorly, but what we really try to do is put people in the best possible position to succeed. And so, combining science and our experience as coaches, whether it be at the college level, the professional level, we want to be able to take that information that we derive from our quantifiable measurements and then apply it to real world player development plans.
And tell me about the satisfaction that you get in the work that you're doing, seeing players grow. What sort of satisfaction do you get personally there,
I mean, it's
Chad?
huge. I think that, I think as we get older, especially if you've had some success as a player, I think now more than ever, my greatest things that I really, it sounds very arrogant when I say this, is I can go out and be successful any day I want to be personally. But for me, the real challenge in life now is to be able to go out and help as many people as humanly possible get better at what they do. I think that to be able to articulate a skill and be able to execute a skill on an individual level is something that a lot of people are able to do, but be able to articulate and execute that skill through the masses, and most importantly, get kids to be able to do it in a reproducible fashion is a big, big deal for me. And it brings me a lot of joy and a lot of excitement whenever I'm able to impact kids at many, many kids in one setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Chad, I'm also curious to ask you about the physical makeup of today's baseball player and how that really affects their ability to hit for power or to be a more finesse hitter, so to speak. How does physical makeup affect a player's ability to
I
hit?
think today's athlete is definitely bigger, faster, stronger than what I'm not sure how old you are, but I know I'm 43 years old, and I can tell you that consistently, player over player and pound for pound, the kids of this era are definitely a lot stronger than what we were. I was a weight room guy that we did bench press, squat, and deadlift, and so we were really strong in really one plane. And today's athlete is strong in many, many planes just because training programs have evolved. We're really focused on output and performance outcomes. So the data and the supporting information around how to get a player to where they need to be at is definitely greater than it's ever been. On the flip side, I will say that today's athlete is probably a little bit more cerebral to a fault sometimes. Kids are extremely analytical, and sometimes they suffer from extreme cases of paralysis by analysis and overthinking just because the data is so readily available to them. And I think that today's athlete is also a lot more anxious than what I probably was growing up, just because the overwhelming amount, again, of information and just knowledge that's thrown at them on a daily basis, I think can sometimes be as harmful as it can be productive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, but your center also uses medical industry-leading technology and partners with medical and exercise science experts to really maximize a player's ability to really elevate their game. So I'm wondering if you can talk about the technological and medical side of it as
Yes, so
well.
I've spent the last 18 years of my career in the medical device space, in orthopedics and neurosurgery and podiatry. And so for me, really important in taking an all-encompassing, well integrated approach to an athlete is how we're going to actually make them better, and most importantly, elevate their career, but also lengthen their careers as well, by taking a little bit of a different approach. We just don't want to look at baseball analytics. We want to look at how does their foot profile and how's their biomechanical profile actually directly correlate with their anatomy, and it allows them to take their games to the next level by using what they're really good at, and then mitigating the risk that they have by looking at what they don't do so well. And so, how do we cheat to put ourselves in the best possible position? If we look at, we'll do a foot scan on somebody, we'll do a hip mobility screen on somebody, and we'll do a directional 5-yard sprint. we'll take all that data and we'll integrate it and say, okay, how do you actually move to your left? How do you move to your right? And if you're a person that moves really well to their left, but you don't move so well to your right, if you're let's say a shortstop, we know that if you've got a right-handed hitter up who's a pull side guy who's traditionally going to hit a ball through the 5-6 hole, we know you probably need to cheat in your pre-pitch where you're, instead of being big toe to big toe, your right foot is slightly back from your left, because your data and your body points are going to tell us that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm also curious to ask you about, I know you work with all types of athletes and all types of body types, but I'm also curious to ask you about if you work with a particular player who plays in a bigger ballpark and they want to hit for more power, for instance, how do you put together a game plan for success for those players that play in those bigger ballparks?
Well, first things first is, one, we want to see what they do well, and we want to see where we can maximize their outputs from a physical and biomechanical perspective, and are they actually engaging and activating certain muscle groups that are going to allow them to generate more kinetic energy. They're going to allow them to generate, and then how are they actually using that kinetic energy off the ground once they generate it? What's their kinematic sequence look like? We're going to start with that, and the second thing we're going to do is we're going to start looking at their spray chart. And we're going to start looking at what balls do they actually drive well, and then we really will work with them on their approach to make sure that they're actively looking for balls in that particular zone. We're going to look at a couple different measurements and evaluations on how their bat's actually fitting them, and then we want to see where do they actually drive the ball to, and then based upon that, we're going to formulate their biomechanical perspective, their equipment perspective. We're going to make sure they're utilizing their body correctly and utilizing centrifugal force and physics to their optimal degree, but most importantly, we're trying to teach them how to identify the right pitches to hit early in the count to allow them to be successful in driving the ball out of the yard.
Absolutely. And Chad, talk to me about the importance of personal commitment by the player in order for them to be successful, because I know it's a two-way street, right? You can give them the tools to be successful, but it's on them to implement the teaching and the tools, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, one of the first things we always talk about is practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And whenever guys will go out there and they'll get a bunch of reps in, they'll get a bunch of sets in, and they're practicing at a level that isn't allowing them to perform and reinforce what we're trying to accomplish, then sometimes more information can be a bad thing. And so I think the biggest thing for us on an execution perspective is getting the player to understand that they need to take high quality reps. And if they're just getting a massive amount of quantity versus quality, they're not actually putting themselves in the best possible position to succeed. And so then gamifying that, and so that every single day that they're practicing, they're competing at a high level. And the biggest thing that most people forget sometimes is that the difference between a single A player, double A player, triple A player, and a big leaguer is the ability to make adjustments, first and foremost. And players have to understand that practicing at a high rate of game speed, but most importantly, understanding that their technique during those practice and high-intensity environments is going to be what's going to make the game a lot slower for them, a lot easier for them.
And just following up on that point, I know that we live in an instant gratification society, but tell me, Chad, how important is patience when you're working with a player if they want to see tangible results? How important is that patience?
That's very important because, Rome wasn't built in a day and neither was your swing. And so it's important for players to understand that we can immediately get instant gratification. That's something that we're very good at here. However, the longevity of that instant gratification is going to be key and paramount to them themselves. They've got to go home and take what we teach them at either in our facility or out on the road in one of our mobile labs or in a private instruction facility. They have to understand that they have to follow the plan, because we can go get you 3 to 5 miles per hour of exit velocity increase. However, if you're not going home and then you just fall back into your old habits and not taking what we learn and making that muscle memory, you will fail. And people need to understand that doesn't just happen overnight. You're gonna improve, but then you'll regress and improve and regress. And what you hope for is every time you improve, that peak just keeps going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher until you're at a level you didn't think before.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, Chad, what do you think people need to know about the science of hitting that the average person really doesn't know? Well, when a player goes into the batter box, for example, what do you think the average fan or baseball enthusiast needs to know about the science of hitting?
Well, one is that your feet are the key to everything. We talk about swing path and you talk about launch angle and all these other performance measurements that are out there. And if you truly break down what hitting a baseball is, it's a transfer of kinetic energy that you drive from the ground up that's then delivered through your hip, through your shoulders, and out through your hands and out through the bat barrel. And it's keeping that bat barrel behind the ball and in contact with the ball for as long as humanly possible. Too many times now more than ever, guys are so fixated with launch angle and they're so fixated with these other things that they oftentimes do not put themselves in the position to succeed. You'll see a lot of hitters that will roll over on their front foot. You lose 11% of your kinetic energy transfer out through your backside, 8% out through your front foot by simply just rolling over. So understanding what toe you press through is key and paramount in you to be successful, based upon the fact that your bat path is really controlled about your balance point. And if you lose your balance with your feet and your legs, you're going to fail.
And talking about that, talking about expectations as well, Chad, in the sense that I'm sure you get players that come to see you that want to emulate their idols or to try to sort of emulate the people that they look up to in life. But, one of the things that I have always lived by in my professional and personal life is that the only expectations that you have to live up to on your own. So talk to me about the balance of trying to work with the psychological makeup of a player who's trying to emulate someone that they sort of idolize.
The greatest example I can give is exactly what happened to me on Friday. I think that what's interesting about baseball players, if you hold up your thumb, everybody's got a thumbprint that's unique and individual to themselves. And I grew up idolizing Jim Thome. He was just my favorite player of all time, and just one from a personality perspective, two from a work ethic perspective, and three from just the way he treats people and just the kind of human he is. But whenever I got to be and work with him and his son on Friday, you realize just how ginormous the guy is. He's just a man. He's not a man. He's a mammal. And so he's 6'4", probably 280 pounds now, just a big guy. And I'm 5'9", 225 pounds. And I'm like, looking back at that and looking at that era, there was no way humanly possible I could ever hit like Jim Thome. I just wasn't big enough, I wasn't strong enough, and I wasn't fast enough. So the thing that people need to realize is that you are an individual and you do one thing in the world better than anybody else in the world, right? And I don't know what that is, you don't know what that is, but everybody has a skill set that makes them unique and individual. And I think that people need to understand that baseball is more than, very, very, very representative of that theory philosophy. In that I'm 5'9", 5'9", 5'9" and a half, 225 pounds. I'm going to reach 98 mile an hour exit velocity, completely different than somebody who's 6'1", 215 pounds, or somebody that's 6'5", 195 pounds. Everybody's going to generate recoil. Everybody's going to generate kinetic energy. Everybody's going to be going through their kinematic sequencing just a little bit differently. The most important thing is that you have consistency, and then secondly, that you're able to really understand how you use your own individual body appropriately, properly. And really, self-awareness is what makes people really exceed and become high-quality players.
Yeah, and to that point, in player development, before I started this podcast, Chad, I used to be an old sports reporter, and whenever I talk to athletes and coaches about developing players, it's all about developing relationships, right? No matter what level of athletics that you're on. So tell me about the importance of developing relationships and how it's interconnected to developing trust as well.
Well, my background is medical device sales, and I think that's a great point you make. The definition of a sale is a transfer of trust, whether it be monetary or whether it be emotional trust. It's a transfer of trust, and it's a transfer of a currency. And so, whenever you're coaching somebody, especially at the level that myself and Heather Keepers, and when we're working with Major League Baseball players, we're working with high level, elite level college players. We're working with their career and we're working with their occupation, their passion. And so for us, getting them to understand that we're not here to showboat, we're not here to, have any type of self, promotion or anything like that. We're just there simply to help them become a better player, and we're there to help them, grow their career because if they succeed, we succeed. And so that's the level of trust that we have to establish, and that's the way that we basically have to really, really sell ourselves to the athlete. Is that if you don't have trust as a coach, you will not have buy-in, and therefore that player will not succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chad, I'm curious to also ask you about the process of getting the players that you work with. So is there sort of a word of mouth sort of a system that you go through, or is there do you work with the league to work with players? How do you get the clients you work with?
Numerous places. Some come from Major League Baseball teams. Some come from Louisville Slugger and Wilson Sporting Goods that get brought by us, and then some come via word of mouth. So it's really a different marketing capacity. It's kind of neat, actually. Whenever again, he reached out for us to work with his son because he heard about us just kind of through social presence. And so I think there's no real way to do this. What's we're starting to come. So we're doing some really, really work that we're very proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chad, I'm curious to ask you, how do you think we can generate more passion for the sport of baseball in the younger generation today?
Well, I think the one thing is making it more interesting. I do think some of the new rule changes at the major league level will help stimulate. It'll help stimulate more interest, garner more interest. But I think it's on how the game is played. I think right now, the game, so to speak, is kind of boring right now, and I'll say that, and it kills me and pains me to say that. But sitting back and just trying to swing from your shoes. There's no strategy to it. It's just run and gun. And I think bringing back small ball. I think bringing back base stealing. I think bunting, some strategy and some elements to the game, and really just educating kids on the beauty of the game is the most important thing. I think I think this is I'll probably get thrown to the wolves on this one, but you're starting to see more in-game gaming with betting and things like that that's coming down the path. I think that's going to probably increase the interest. The Atlantic League did a very interesting trial last year with in-game gaming where you can actually bet on pitch to pitch to pitch. I think that's going to raise the stakes as well, and I think that's going to draw and garner more interest. But from a youth level, I think that baseball is still reasonably popular. However, I do think we've lost our way a bit from the standpoint that how do we make it more interesting? How do we actually teach the fundamentals of the game, make it more exciting? Drills and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chad, tell me, I'm curious, for you, what's the best part of your job, buddy?
I think for me, growing the game. I think if I were to label myself, I truly take a lot of pride in being an ambassador to the game. I wouldn't want to work for any other. And I own the company with my business partner Heather. For me, I definitely wouldn't want to work with any other bat company. Louisville Slugger is the reason why I got to be where I'm at today from a professional perspective. I always tease people and say it's God, family, and Louisville Slugger in my life because it really has opened up a lot of doors. Very, very proud of the brand, and I think that being able to go out on a daily basis and talk about that is one of the coolest things for me is being able to go out and show what we're doing as a company, as a partner of Louisville Slugger, as a partner of Wilson, and really teaching kids how to play the game right, but most importantly, how to help them really grow their career and optimize their career so that they can go out and teach somebody, whenever they're my age as well.
It's all about paying it forward,
Yes,
isn't
sir.
it?
Yes, sir.
Chad, I'm also curious to ask you. I'm sure you run like baseball clinics and other ways for athletes to really connect with them and building a sense of community. So I'm wondering about building that sense of community and whether you think it's a positive in terms of keeping the athletes that you work with accountable.
As far as building, one of the things I love doing technology, obviously we're doing it in the face-to-face interaction or however many miles away. And I think that's very important for me. One of the things I always works with is to send me a video every Friday. I want to make sure that I'm invested in success, I'm invested in their future. Most importantly, I want to be that person to help them get to the next level. This year coming up, we'll do 48 weeks of camps and clinics where we'll be on the road. Somebody from my company in our mobile lab division. I actually enjoy the mobile labs more than I do being in my facility because that allows me to expand the reach and really help as many people as humanly possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chad, my final question for you this afternoon has to do with your own personal and professional legacy, my friend, and how you want that to be defined.
I think from my personal legacy perspective, I think just being known as a person that went out and helped Louisville Slugger spread the word, and I think from helping Wilson Sporting Goods increase market share through educational content, and then most importantly, helping people all over the world enjoy the game of baseball. I think, and softball for that matter. I've really grown to love working with young ladies and across from the college age down to the 10U age. Really become and develop a passion and how we can move the ball forward, so to speak. And your question, a few questions back, how do we get people to have more interest in the game? It's driving passion. It's driving enthusiasm. It's driving the love of the game. That's what really fuels my life and fuels my fire to make this thing better and better and better every day.
Yeah, and tell me if people want to get connected with the Science Center or you personally, buddy. What's the best way they can do
Go
that?
into our website at www.sluggerscience.com. You can check out our YouTube links as well on our YouTube channel, which is Slugger Science. Our Instagram handle is Slugger Science, and then our Facebook page as well. People can also email me directly at cmiller@sluggerscience.com.
Fantastic. Well, Chad, I really enjoyed our conversation. As an old sports reporter, anytime I get to talk about sports and baseball, I'm excited, buddy. I want to thank you for the work that you do to inspire the minds of the next generation of baseball players and for joining me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate it, and please call me anytime. I'd love to help you out.